Hello everyone! How are you doing today? Yesterday consisted mostly of me listening to The Adventure Zone. I'm sure a lot of you know what that is. I think it was like earlier in the week I started just re-listening to the entire thing because I did listen to a lot of it some months ago, but then I stopped and I was like, okay, I want to listen to the entire thing again. So I've been doing that this week, and last night I got to like episode 59 and I was like dying. I was so tired. I'm gonna have to start listening again today because I just woke up a few hours ago and I haven't really gotten to listening to anything more again, but I'm really looking forward to getting further in. I really want to finish listening to the entire thing soon. I don't know if I'll be able to do that today. I don't know how many hours are left in the series, but one can hope. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a Dungeons & Dragons podcast, and it's really great. I definitely recommend it. It's actually one of the reasons that I started playing Dungeons & Dragons myself. I remember months ago, probably a year ago by now, where I first started listening to it, and I was like, oh man, I kind of want to play now. And luckily, some of my friends also felt the same way and ended up inviting me to play with them, and that's where I think last week's video, that's one of the campaigns that I've been in, and I've had no regrets. Oh, speaking of regrets, I do have some. Well, of course I have hundreds. But the ones that I'm talking about now is that, okay, so you know in last week's Drawn Talk, I told you about the Lost in Oz show that I found and started watching and all that. I think I mentioned that I was tweeting as I was watching. I don't know if I mentioned it, but well, I was. When I first started watching it and I was so amazed by the greatness of it, I was like, okay, Shayna, live tweeting while watching Lost in Oz. I basically just replied to that tweet with a bunch of different things that, had me freaking out. Just in general, I was freaking out a lot because I absolutely love The Wizard of Oz, so, a lot of little details would get me, so I'd, tweet about being excited about those things. And sometimes I would, quote the show in a tweet and be, talking about the quote. But anyway, so the point of me telling you all that was, so I posted those tweets, and then I think it was either the same day or the next, I went and looked at my notifications, and one of the writers, one of the writers from the show liked some of my tweets, and I gotta say, I was pretty embarrassed, because currently, my Twitter handle and all that is pretty embarrassing. It's pretty random. So I was like, that's one of the things I'm embarrassed about. And another thing is that the things I was saying was I was freaking out about it. I was making a fool of myself, but my friends know how excited I get about these things. But it was just pretty embarrassing for one of the actual legit writers to see that and like the things. I was like, oh no. And before all that happened, I had also tweeted in that same day about one of my friends posted about what movies do you watch when you're upset? And I had a little list for mine, and one of the movies was Over the Hedge. I know a lot of you might be like, oh my gosh, why do you like that movie? But I don't gotta explain myself. Anyway, so that was one of the movies on the list. And the guy who created the Over the Hedge characters, the comic from the 90s, I believe. And it's actually still going. I knew this was the guy because I actually had gone and read the comics, the original comics, a ton of them. And I think some of the first ones were as old as that. So the guy who actually created those characters that I love to watch in that stupid movie, he liked the tweet, and then he followed me, and I was like, no. I mean, I would expect that he muted me right after, but just the fact that he pressed that button and I was being really, really silly on my page, I'm just like, why have you done this? I love your work, but, don't look at me. It was so embarrassing, but it was really funny because that happened in basically the same day that one of the writers from Lost in Oz found me, I think the day after. But still, just why does this keep happening to me? That's basically how I was reacting. I had no clue. I did not expect for those tweets to be seen, but they were, and it's pretty mind-blowing. It's pretty mind-blowing. Ooh, oh my gosh. I have to tell you a horror story that just happened yesterday. So I was, doing my thing, drawing, I think. Oh yeah, I was working on backgrounds. Which, by the way, somebody asked me to record some background work, and I didn't have any at the time, but, like, I'm back on backgrounds now, so I might be recording a background drawing talk in the future. But anyway, so I was working on backgrounds, and I see on my wall a giant spider, just a giant spider crawl up my wall. And like I have like a lot of papers taped up to my wall, so like it was like going under the papers and all that, and it was literally the biggest spider I have ever seen in my entire life, and I am not exaggerating there. This spider was huge. I was like, is this real life? Am I dreaming? This spider is the biggest spider I've ever seen, and I'm like seeing it crawl up my wall, and it's like behind my desk. So that adds to a little bit of the horror. I was like trying to think about it, and I was like, man, it was probably where my legs were, like before it climbed up to be seen behind the desk. And, so that was horrifying, a horrifying thought. And then, basically I was trying to get the attention of my siblings who, like, can better deal with spiders. I was, like, sending them messages. Nobody was awake because it was freaking 1 a.m. And I was, like, trying to take pictures of it because it was a momentous occasion. And I was, like, taking a video to show my sister so that she can see that, I need help. And so I, like, looked down for a moment, I looked back up, and it wasn't there anymore. And I was like, oh no, where did it go? And so I was going back to trying to message someone to help me. And I looked back up, and I don't know how it got there, because there was a lot of, like, space between that point in the wall to the ceiling. But it got on the ceiling, like, in between me looking down and looking up. Like, I don't know how it got there, but I took a video of that as well. It reminded me of the Dungeons & Dragons campaign that I talked about last week. It deals with spiders a lot. So it was just like being like, hey, remember Dungeons & Dragons? Well, it's real now, and I've come to be the boss battle. I just can't stress how actually horrifying it was. But anyway, so I took the video, and then it fell from the ceiling to my desk. But it fell in the stuff that is like kind of hard to navigate through, because it was like a box of just stuff on my desk. So I did not know where it was. So it took a while. I had a flashlight and I was like trying to take everything out of the box to see where it was, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, okay, fine. I mean, I want to say it's out of sight, out of mind, but it was a very big spider, so I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna be sitting here, because, like, I needed to work on my projects, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to calmly continue to work on my project, and if and when it shows itself again, I'm just gonna have to try to kill it. And so it took a while, and I was still listening to the Adventure Zone podcast, and I was laughing at something in the podcast, I don't know what, but I was just, it was like a big laugh, and right when I was like taking breath in from my laugh, it happened to be when the spider showed itself again. So it showed itself, and I was like, like, even, I laughed at myself just because how funny it was that I was like, I happened to be needing to intake air right when the spider shows itself again. So it was basically like a comically loud gasp of air as I see the spider again, and it was just, I don't know, it was funny. I did end up getting it, but I did lose it again until it, like, showed itself again, but, like, in the end, I did come out victorious. Ooh, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you what I was drawing this week. Wow, that's pretty rare that I forget to say that, because most of the time I say it just to fill in time, but this time, I don't think I mentioned it at all. What you're seeing is me working on a character sheet for M. Eric Wood, one of the main characters for Jade and Unshaken. Well, anyway, so it seems that I did actually find enough to talk about this week that was actually interesting, and not me just blabbing on about something or other that doesn't really matter and trying to fill in time. I hope you enjoyed. I certainly enjoyed talking about the weird things that happened to me this week. Next week, I believe I will be drawing Amy's character sheet. Oh, and when I say character sheet, like, these are, like, brand new character sheets. I used to have some old Jade and Unshaken character sheets, and they're pretty ugly now, and I've been, like, pretty unhappy with them for a while, so I'm like, okay, I gotta make a new one. And so I made one for Jaden, and that was already posted, and I ended up posting Em and Amy's early for my Tumblr blog. Like, if you follow the link in the description to the Jane and Chicken blog, you'll be seeing Amy's sheet as well. But anyway, I had a really good time drawing this today. Hope you have had a good week and maybe some interesting things happen to you this week as well. Tell me about them in the comments if you'd like. It's getting closer and closer to Halloween, and I know y'all like that. Did you end up deciding what you're gonna do for the holiday? Have a wonderful day, and bye-bye!